it's Lauren with Trip and Travel, and welcome to the first episode of Trip Planning 101. I am beyond excited to start this course or training class, whatever you would like to call it, on basically planning your trip from the very beginning to the very end, and how to make that cycle much more efficient for you, and to find basically the perks to planning your trip. So if you're interested, keep watching, but don't forget to like, subscribe, and also leave me a comment. I would love to know, more about what you would like to see and if this has been helpful for you. So yeah, so stay tuned and let's get started. So today I'm going to be talking about budget. So the thing that people probably don't want to talk about, it's not always the funnest, but it's very realistic. You do have to have somewhat of a budget when planning a trip, because it's not like a monthly bill that you pay all the time, at least not for most of us. So I wanted to get on here and kind of start the Trip Planning 101 with this first, because sometimes this can really help point you in a direction that is helpful. So episode 1, all about budget planning. So I have my notes here. I have a few short tips and steps on what to do, basically to set you up for success. So 5 steps here, and my 5th step could either go at the beginning or the end, so just keep that in mind when I get to the 5th step, depending on your function, your personality, and the way you'd like to do it. But a lot of times we just don't know how to realistically plan for a trip that we've never been on, or a trip that we haven't been on in a long time. Things change and things come up, so it's really hard to plan sometimes when it comes to how much you intend to spend on a trip, and how to be realistic with it, because sometimes we can set goals and expectations and it's way off. So a lot of the planning process will help you in that step. Step 1 is just determining a safe budget. So yes, we would love to go on luxurious trips, and there are ways to get good deals on those. However, let's be realistic, and if you don't have money to spend on a suite every night, let's don't do that. I think the best thing is to prioritize what you want out of your trip. So what I mean by that is, when you're setting down for your budget, think about the things that you want out of the trip. Are you more of like, I like activities, I like to do things, or are you more of, I want this stay and where we're going to be, my main focus and the thing that I want out of it the most, like I am going to be majority at the hotel and relaxing. Great, that's for you. Then you need to focus your budget on the hotel side of things. If activities and what you're going to be doing while you're there is more important than, hey, I'm really not going to be at the hotel for very long, then your budget is going to be consisting of those activities and not so much on the hotel. And those, how to get good deals on those will also be an episode later on, specifically all about hotels. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that, so I will go ahead and move on, but just stay tuned for that episode, because that will be coming here in the next couple of weeks. So again, just make sure that your budget's realistic. So for instance, when we went to, just gonna name a place, New York City, we have to budget for flights, and again, that's a whole nother story that I will get into as well, as far as getting good prices on flights and how to save on flights and what to do to get the best out of your money on flights. whole other episode. I could be here all day, but you know, you have to budget those flights and how you'll be paying for flights, and then you have to think about the hotel. So just in that location, like there's so many different things that you have to look at, and we will do like a mock planning here in a minute. But basically just set a realistic goal for yourself. You're going to be spending money on food. You have to eat. I mean, you can maybe knock down your meals a little bit, not go to a 5-star restaurant every time, things like that I think could be very helpful, and we'll go over that again. But just make sure that you are setting a realistic goal for yourself. So you want to start off with determining that budget and then probably planning a trip from there. Or if you would like, if you have a place in mind that you want to go. Like for me, it was Paris. I'd always wanted to go to Paris, so we had to kind of sit down and reevaluate how much it would cost to get to, you know, to go to Paris, what it took to get us to Paris, and evaluate all of those steps in order to create a realistic budget. Sitting back and be like, do we actually have the means to travel to that place? And the reason why we do this and the reason why it's important is you never want to go on these trips and set yourself up for failure coming back. Yes, sometimes those are great trips and they may be worth your while, but I don't want you breaking your piggy bank in order to go on those trips. That's just something that's kind of helpful if you kind of know what trip that you're trying to work your way towards. Then let's sit down and let's plan that. And when I say let's, definitely message me. I would love to help you plan those trips and try to budget for those trips. I've been on all sorts of trips, all-inclusive resort trips, international trips, cruises, city trips, beach trips. I've been on a lot of different trips per se, and so I kind of can judge maybe what we spend and how we go about it. So those are two options when it comes to determining a safe budget. So how do we budget? How do you keep up with budgeting? And this is step 2. I'm trying to not make this so long, but there's just so much information. So how do we budget? There's a lot of apps out there, and let me see if I can't pull. There we go. I found a couple of budget apps in the App Store if you have an iPhone. And basically these apps are very good on determining like how much you pay a month. So there are apps out there, I won't go too much into it, you know, I don't want to go into like budgeting in general, but that's a way to keep up with it if need be. Some people have like a fund and they put, you know, loose change in it and they raise money that way, which can be a really fun idea, especially if you have children, to kind of make them feel like they're contributing to that trip. You can also use apps to track to save on certain things like airline apps, Expedia, hotel, like different apps out there that are for traveling specifically that you can get to help kind of track those for trips later on down the road as well, which we will go over that later. I don't know if it'll be in this video, but definitely later. Okay, so what to budget? And this part is basically a lot. So okay, I went ahead and opened an Excel sheet in Google Sheets. I just wanted to show you this quick template that I saw for basically your activities, flights, everything trip-wise. Thought that was kind of neat. I don't use it currently, but it does look pretty cool if you are interested. But basically onto the budget side of things, I'm just going to create a very simplistic budget. I'm going to look up things like flights. That would be like my number one thing that I would want to look at. I was trying to find a private browser, such a habit, and I'll explain why later. But I'll just go in here, and for time's sake, I'm just going to look up flights to New York City and Google from OKC, because that's the best location for me. I just go down again. I'm just looking in Google right now. I'm just trying to get a good idea. Nothing's set in stone. This is just like my budget. So it has a list here of different airlines. I mainly do American just because I do have basically a reward system with them, and I'll go into that in the flights episode. But that is what I'm mainly going to base my flights budget off of. Of course, maybe look at other airlines. I'm not just partial to American, that's just what I utilize. Of course, make sure you have the correct information in there at the top. Make sure you have it all filtered and everything. I'm going to go back, plug in my numbers that I had found, and I'm going to always give myself a little bit of cushion here just in case flights go up. They fluctuate a lot. Make sure to check out my flight episode that's coming up next because you will be blown away by how much they change flight costs. So now I'm going to be looking up hotel information. I stayed at the DoubleTree before, so I'm just going to base it off of that price. But as you can see, there's a map here that shows you different prices in that area. If you want, I typically do a lot of research on hotels. I wouldn't just pick one and then go with it. So make sure to check out that video. But next is food. And quite honestly, it's really hard to budget for food. So just put a realistic budget there and just make sure that you be mindful of it on the actual trip. Activities. So this is something that I also spend a lot of time researching just because I want to find out what the prices are for museum tickets or bus rides or admission. I don't want to show up somewhere and be thrown off just because I wasn't prepared for that, especially when a lot of things can start to add up. So I use, I believe this is TripAdvisor. I use them a little bit, and I use a lot of different places. Another episode for another day, but this is basically saying or telling me, different things that are going on that I may be interested in. I will pick a few of those, and then of course it will tell me once I click on the information, maybe go to their website, a little bit more on the admission. But I'll put that in there. Again, I kind of make it go up a little bit just for cushion. And then souvenirs, I just added 100 there just to be safe. So overall, this is just a good balance of what your trip would be consisted of. And I believe this came out to be about $2,500. And I would say that that's like a bottom line price point. I would always estimate a little bit higher just to be safe. Step 4, quickly moving on, how to stay on budget. So again, staying on budget is really easy when you've pre-planned your trip. Going straight into the dark, you have no idea how much things are going to cost. So for instance, Ryan and I went to Paris. I made the itinerary, which I understand some people may feel indifferent about having an itinerary. However, I made an itinerary. I went through the museums. I found the prices. I added them all up and I said this is how much it's going to be for us to do our activities. Yeah, so just make sure that when you're budgeting, it all goes back to what to budget and you have it on there. It will help you stay on that budget if you have that set number. So all this was budget planning. I know it's a lot, but I hope you enjoyed the content and I can't wait to share more about it. If there's anything in this video that you have questions about or would like me to go over in detail, I would love to. This was just a very quick overview. I could literally sit here all day and explain things. That's just the way it is, and there's a lot to uncover. And yeah, so if you would just definitely leave me a comment, tell me if this helped you. If you do need help trying to plan for your trip and you just don't know where to start, even after this video, please go ahead and message me and I would love to look at that for you. But yeah, I really appreciate you all for watching and stay tuned for next week's episode. I think basically at this point we'll be starting the first steps of planning, so we'll get into some more trip stuff and not so much finance and budget. And just stay tuned for next week's video. We'll start to dive deep into the actual travel planning part of it. But thank you so much again for watching and I hope you have a wonderful day, and yeah, so So thanks, and don't forget to subscribe and also follow me on Instagram.